Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway, and today welcome back to the servicing table or the workbench or whatever you want to call it. And today I'm going to show you, well, how to make an animated crane to put on your layout, or as it might turn out to be, how not to make an animated crane for your layout, because I've never tried this before and I've built all the parts and such, but I haven't put them together yet, so we'll have to see what happens. Now everything I'm going to show you today is all made with basic parts that everybody has, and in fact most of it is just built of these DVD cases, all the moving parts, everything, and in fact the only specialist part you need really is the motor, but still I've done this because everyone can make it then, but of course if you want to use the specialist parts and the right equipment you can do that, but all you really need is household equipment. So anyway, as I say, I built all the parts yesterday evening. I spent all evening sort of designing it, getting it ready and cutting out the parts. Oh yeah, and by the way, these DVD cases are very good because they're quite cheap plastic, so you can get them very cheaply. And also you've got this sort of, I don't know, see-through plastic which you can use to make windows, so always keep that. And also you can cut through it with scissors, which is perfect for shaping things. Now I already built the main chassis of it last night. Now of course this doesn't look like much, and you won't see any of this. This is all going to be interior, but that's the main part of it anyway. And basically what we're going to have to do first is fix the motor onto this. And I already sort of did this last night with the motor. As you can see, the motor's got an arm on it which should rotate, and we can check that that's working. I think it was last night, so if it isn't now, that's not good, but here we go. Let me just plug these crocodile cables on. If I just touch this one, we get nothing. How interesting. Hang on. There we are. Oops. As you can see, that's turning around quite happily, and that is going to be the basis for the whole movement of the thing. And as you can see, it's pretty quiet. And I'm hoping that's not going to get too warm and melt the hot glue, but it's not under a lot of stress. This is actually the same motor that runs the wind turbine, if you're interested. Okay, anyway, so what we're going to do then is we're going to glue this on here now. I've drawn a little sort of shape where that needs to go. So what I'm going to do is just going to get some hot glue and glue that in place. And the perfect thing about hot glue is you can always change your mind later on and you know, pull it back up, which is perfect. So, oh, that's a bit hot. Yeah, some rubbish got stuck to it. Okay, so if I stick this in then, like this. And hold that down, hopefully that will stick. It's about in the right place there, I think. And I'll just peel this hot glue off my finger while I'm waiting for that to go off. And I only used a little bit on there, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. But I don't want the glue to go inside the motor, which is why I didn't use loads just then. There we are. Use plenty just here. Right, that should be stuck down then. Okay, so that's the first part done. And yep, all I did to build this chassis, by the way, was just cut out pieces, measure the pieces of plastic from the DVD case, and then just hot glue them together. And of course, this whole design, you can take it and do anything you want with it. Of course, I'm going to build a body to go over this so that you won't see it. But if you wanted to, you could sort of make this chassis out of wood and paint it up to look really nice so that you don't need the body. And but you know, whatever you want to do is just fine, and it doesn't even have to be a crane. You can make virtually anything you want with this. Alright, so next thing then, I've got this skewer, which is going to be the sort of main crane shaft, and that basically goes through these holes here and into here. But before I fit that, I need to put this arm on it, and this is the sort of reciprocating arm which will sit on here. So what I'm just going to do is put it through the first hole and then somehow get this to stick on here. So hopefully that will fit on there. Yeah, that fits. I've got the size of the hole right then. Right, shove that up there and pop that through the hole like that. Okay, so that seems to be in place, and we'll get the level just right hopefully. But first I've also made this shaft. Now this is the sort of main driving shaft, and let me just adjust this camera very slightly, and hopefully this shaft is measured to the right size so that you can just drop it on there. Now of course you don't have to measure everything, you can just sort of trial and error it. which is basically what I've done really. But yeah, I think that looks like it's going to fit. I'm just going to power it up again and see if that works, and if not, we're going to have to remelt the hot glue around the motor and adjust it so that it does work, but we'll see. Hopefully this should have a nice left and right movement, and would you look at that, it does. Yep, and as you can see the motor's speeding up somehow. Now, is that at the right height? Not really. I'm going to lower that slightly. Let me turn this off. I'm just going to lower this so that it's a little bit lower. A bit more, tiny bit more. Yeah, I think that's about right. Let's just check once more. Yeah, I think so. Seems to be about right, that does. I'm trying to stop it in the right place so I can just see how far we've got before that screw comes into play. Okay, so that's working alright. What I'll do then is I will glue that arm onto the main sort of skewer, or shaft if you want to use its new proper term. So yeah, just a little bit of hot glue on here, and then we'll get on with the rest of the build. Okay, that should stay there. Nice. Okay, so then what we're going to need to do now is I'm going to put this shaft on, and then I'm going to put some sort of stoppers on it so that it doesn't come off, and that should that should make it a little bit more robust. I'm going to hot glue a little piece on top of that just so that it doesn't come off if I turn the model upside down once the body's on, because I'm going to be gluing the body on, and once it's glued on it can't come back off, so the mechanism has to work properly. So I'm just going to try it now. If I glue this too much, it's going to seize the mechanism up. So I just want a tiny bit of glue on there, and then just apply that on there, and that will just stop that shaft coming off. The crankshaft, of course. So that should be good. I think that's looking good, and let's just cut out another little piece then to put on the other side. Whoa, that went flying. There we go. Now I can put one of these washer type thingies on this side because there's loads of space. But also there's a body that I've made out of card. I designed it on Photoshop and printed it out. And the card body is to fit over this, so this can't be all that high. Can't be terribly high. So that's why I'm having to keep the height pretty low on this side, but I'm not really bothered on this side. So let's do the same again then. Let's just glue a little piece onto there. And I realise this isn't a particularly interesting video, it's more just watching me make something, but hopefully the end product will be quite good. And I'll put it on the railway, of course, on the layout, and then you'll know how it came to be. Okay, that seems fine by me. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh yeah, there is something else. I've decided I'm going to put an LED in this system so that we've got some light in there, and I'm going to hook that up to the same power supply. And what I actually did was I already got the LED ready. I've soldered it all together, and that's going to sit somewhere here, I think, and shine, because there's windows going to be on this part. You'll see all that later on. But first what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat shrink tubing to this. Am I? No, I don't think I will. I think I will just hot glue it in place like this. So I need some shorter cables. And what I also need to do is make some holes in the bottom of this plastic so that I can pass the wires underneath to the layout. The best way I use to do this is just use the soldering iron. It's a bit naughty, but it makes a nice hole. Make sure you clean the tip nicely afterwards, otherwise it gets a bit messy. But yeah, that's that. And what I will do is I will trim the motor wires first of all. I can't see my snippers, so I'm just going to cut those off with scissors. There we are, and then I'm just going to strip those back with these wire strippers, which are very useful. And what I will also do is clamp the wires in my pliers so that that was a good rhyme. I always make rhymes when I'm making these videos, I don't know why. So I don't end up pulling the wires out of the motor. But yeah, here we are. Let's just strip those off, perfect. And on the other side, oops, come on now pliers. There we are. I did not just speak to my pliers. Okay, so a little bit of solder then. We'll tin up those, oops, That's a fuchsia part that just hit me. Okay, I'm just going to tin up those ends then with a bit of solder so that we're ready to use them, and I'm sorry for the smoke, not that you have to breathe it. Dear. Right, so I'm just going to work out how long these wires roughly need to be, and I'm going to put the light sense, the module there, so it needs to be about so long. And don't worry about me wasting wires, because I'll use these wires later on. Okay, let me just tin up, well, strip and tin up these. Here we are. And the other side. And this all taps into a 12 volt grid that's underneath the layout. And I'm actually going to put this building where an existing building is, so I don't even have to add wires. I can just use the old LED circuit, and of course remove the 1K resistor, and then we've got full 12 volts, as many amps as we want, within reason. It's going to pull about 300 milliamps, I think. So that should be just about fine, and that's not under load, that's based on the wind turbine, and of course the wind turbine will pull a lot more current because there's a much greater load on there. Okay, now let's just glue this LED in place then. So we want a blob of hot glue, and I don't want any of this to go near the mechanism, because the last thing I want is to glue that up. But yeah, just a bit of hot glue on there, and add the LED. So that the LED looks as though it's coming from above rather than just being on the floor, because I don't really like it when they're on the floor. Sometimes there isn't a choice, but here there is. So now we've just got to wait for that hot glue to go off. I really need a little fan up here or something, because things with hot glue dry much quicker if you just blow a fan onto them. Marvellous, really. Now I don't really care about polarity at the moment, because the direction the motor spins I'm not really bothered about, because it works either way. So all I'll do is just connect it up the way that makes the LED work. Just make sure this motor's still going to be working. Yeah, quite pleased with that. It's a little bit dodgy, isn't it? But it's certainly not too bad. If I stop that about halfway, that means when I attach the top of the crane to it, that should work. So yeah, it's all a bit dodgy, isn't it, this? It's a bit of a bodge job, but that's the best way to do things sometimes. Bodge something together and see what you get. But hopefully the exterior of this thing will look pretty good. Well, hopefully anyway, once it's up and running. Now I'm going to create a couple of extra wires, and these are going to be the main input wires for the whole thing, and they're just going to poke out the bottom of it. And everything's going to be soldered onto that, because that's quite nice and tidy. We've got the motor and the light in there, but they're all tied into the same 12 volt supply. And of course the motor doesn't want any resistors on it, because that's quite happy on 12 volts, on unhindered 12 volts. But of course that resistor is just for the LED there. I'm just stripping these back. I'm not going to bother with any heat shrink, I don't think, because as long as I glue the wires where they're not going to touch each other, they're not going to get jostled around. And if I glue the output wires in place, even if they get tugged, they shouldn't, they shouldn't move. So that's good. Alright, so I tinned those, didn't I? And now we're just going to want to put them together with the helping hand. I don't think the helping hand's going to be an awful lot of good here, because they're not going to reach. But let's try. So first terminal on the motor then, hold that one still while I bring this wire round and solder to it. Oh, this is a bit awkward actually. Yeah, that'll be fine. Let me solder right-handed today, which looks very messy because I'm not right-handed. Okay, well they've got that. I'll flow that up a little bit better in a while. But first, let's do the other side. And then we'll check that LED works. That'll be a bit of a blow if it doesn't. That'll be very, very annoying if it doesn't. I'm trying to keep my soldering iron away from the plastic work that I've painstakingly put together. Otherwise, a meltdown wouldn't probably help this all too well. Alright. So let's see which way that's going to be wired then. Not that it matters, but one terminal on there. And this is a 12 volt supply that's coming in here at the moment. Alright, oh, did I see the LED? Oh, seem to have a bit of leakage. Oh, that can't be the other, it must be the other way. Some of these cheap LEDs do have a little bit of leakage even though they're supposed to be diodes, but as you can see, oops, there we go, as you can see that's working quite well. Yep, that isn't bad actually. Let me disconnect that before I do myself an injury. Yeah, this motor is extremely powerful, it really is. Okay, so if I glue these wires down somewhere, like that, because of course I don't want the wires under any circumstances to come into contact with that mechanism, because it would jam, I'm fairly sure. And that is burning me. Ouch. There we are. Just hold that in place. Should have perhaps put my extra wires on there before I did that, but oh well, we'll try. Get rid of some of this hot glue fur and hair. Okay, yeah, that should still be available to solder to. So let me just tin up these wires. I might as well tin them up on both ends actually. Makes the most sense. Soldering. Yep. So yeah, this isn't going to be the most fast-paced video, I'm afraid, but hopefully it will all work out fairly well. There we are. That's tinned up. Make sure this camera's still running. Alright, so that's one set tinned up, and I've tinned both ends just so that when I'm installing it on the layout, if it gets to that stage, it will all function properly and I can just solder it straight on. So a little bit of solder there, and a little bit on there. And then very easily, hopefully, I'll be able to just solder straight onto these. It doesn't really matter how well I do it, but I'd like it to hold if possible. Okay, that's one. That was the easy one. Now I've got the one that I didn't flow very well, so what I will do is I'll pump some more solder onto this. Yep, that's come apart as expected, but never mind. Let me solder this onto it first then. There we are. And then just get that to stick on there if possible. There we are. And let's just at this stage make sure we've still got some connection there. Make sure that is actually connected. Yep, it is. Alright, cool. I think we are ready then to start assembling this in earnest. So I'm just going to feed these wires underneath the base. I know you won't be able to see this too well. There we are, underneath there. And I'll just make sure the other wires are out the way. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue onto those, I reckon. Just so that it's well and truly out the way. In fact, if I just put a big dollop of hot glue on there, that will hold it all down. In fact, I think I will do that. There we are. And obviously I don't know how this mechanism is going to work after a year or so. We'll have to see if it's still intact, but it should be quite easy to modify if I ever need to. But yeah, I think for the interior, that is done. I'll just let that hot glue go off. And while it does go off, I will show you my plans. Now what I did was, with pencil and paper, I designed a little sort of outer shell, like this, looks a bit like a church, and just that goes down over it, as you can see, like that. Now I scanned, before I cut this out and made it, I scanned it into the computer so that if it did work, I would be able to colour it in and print it off, and that's exactly what I've done. So here is the coloured and printed version with the sort of funny top on there. It doesn't look too great at the moment, but I will hopefully clear that up. In fact, I'll put a bit of hot glue on this actually to repair it slightly before it's even put on there, because we don't want this to fall apart particularly. Alright, so yeah, and as you can see there's some windows on this back piece here, so that A, you can see the mechanism a little bit, because I quite like things like that, and B, so that the light from the LED will shine and you know, you'll be able to see it from the outside. So hopefully that'll be rather good, and I'm gonna literally hot glue this body over it so that it will be permanent, or semi-permanent I should say. But I think that hot glue's mostly gone off now, so I'm going to just try this. Now the little skewer needs to poke out the top, quite importantly, so that needs to go down there, and that's going to fit nicely, I think. Oh, that's exciting, isn't it? And then I'll show you what I'm going to put on the top, the thing that will actually move left and right, so you see, it's getting a bit more exciting now. Okay, sorry. Right, I'm just going to get another little tube of glue for the hot glue gun. Here it is. And I'm just going to stick that in the back. And here we are. Let's just add a little bit of glue to each corner. Yep, each of the 4 corners there. Got to do this quickly before it starts to dry. And I realise I'm not in shot probably at the moment, but I've just got to do this while I can. And I know it's also going to stick us down onto the page that I'm working on here, but we'll have to live with that. Right, so first of all I have to get the skewer through the hole, and that's done. And that goes over there. Now we'll work out how to peel it off from this piece of paper in a little while, but first of all we'll just adjust this camera. Yeah, we'll just let the glue dry and let the glue take it nicely. I suppose while we do that, I will make sure that these wires aren't getting stuck, and we'll just plug it in and see what it looks like if I get it the right way. No, that's not the right way. Hang on. Yeah, you can see some light on in there, which is good. And yeah, sure enough, the top piece is turning, which is jolly good news. Okay, that's cool. So I don't know how this hot glue's getting on. Yeah, it's getting solid. Well, this is going to be interesting actually, isn't it, to try and peel this off. No doubt it will be stuck to the page. You can hear tearing. Okay, yep, that's good. Right, so it seems to be fitting not bad. Fairly well fitting. Some of it hasn't actually taken, but what I will do is now that it's up on its back, I can just put a little bit of glue on here to hold it in place. Hopefully that will work nicely. There we are. I don't know how much of that you could have seen, but yeah, that's that. Let me just peel these cables off. There we are. Okay, I'm really pleased with that. That's come out well. So I'll show you then what is going to go on the top. And let me put this down. Gosh, it's sticking up a bit. Yeah, there's hot glue on here, which there shouldn't be. On these wires. I need to make sure they're free of all hot glue, because this has got to sit as close to the ground as possible once it's installed. But yeah, there we are. Okay, so this is a bit rough now. So what I've got is, don't laugh, it's this, which is just a crane top, which is going to sort of reach out over there. And then what I've also done is, if I can find it, I've got a crane hook, which looks like that, which I'm just going to hot glue on actually. I can do that now. So we want a little blob of hot glue, only a little blob. This hook isn't going to take any weight, by the way. It's just a two-way paper hook, which I made on Photoshop. So that goes on there, let that glue. I can't believe some of the things I do, honestly. And I'll show you how I've designed this once that's glued. But let's see how that looks. It's got a few strings of hot glue still attached to it, so we'll get those off. And the hook has seemed to hook onto lots of other hot glue that was left around. That's the one trouble with hot glue, isn't it? It just makes such a lot of mess. Right, so I've designed this so that you can bend the cab back and then stick the skewer through this hole, and then once it's on, I'm just going to pump this full of hot glue and fold this down. So let's make sure these folds are good, because I need to be able to fold it down. and then that will be pumped full of hot glue. So let's not waste any time, let's try it. Let's give it a go then. So this skewer just needs to go into this hole. Like that. I think that's gone in. Let's just try it and see what it looks like before I pump it full of hot glue and then get the positioning right. Yeah, that's cool. Happy with that. Perhaps just wants turning a little bit. No, that's good actually. Quite pleased with that. It's very noisy though, isn't it? It's going to be a bit irritating, I suppose, but never mind. Who cares? Doesn't seem to be stuck on all that well. Hang on. How can we get this to stay on? I think that's on. Yeah, that's definitely on. Okay, so let's pump that full of hot glue. It's going to take absolutely ages for that to dry. But once it does, that should be a single working piece. It's going to take absolutely forever. I shouldn't have pumped it quite so full of hot glue perhaps, but oh well, I've done it now. Okay, well that's it then. I'm quite happy with that. Of course it is a bit of a barge and it's not for the serious modeler, but of course if you wanted to make it more serious you could use the same mechanism and do so. Yeah, let's show you it in action then, and then the next time you see it I'll put it on the layout. There you go. It seems to work, and I quite like the fact that it's not quite it was going to be going left and right here, but it sort of goes around the corner a bit, which is cool. Because I think I'll put the track sort of here, so it looks as though it might be lifting wagons, but of course really it wouldn't be able to lift a wagon. But yeah, that's pretty cool, and hopefully when the lights go down you'll be able to see the light inside there. But yeah, hopefully that should be pretty good. It is a bit on the noisy side, but still, it works very well. So yeah, I'll install that on the layout, and I'll see how I get on with it. Alright, let's give it a try. Okay, so there we go, it's in place, and I've basically tried to blend it in a little bit, and as you can see there's some crates and such. So let's give it a try then, see if it works. Yep, so hopefully that should be an interesting look to the layout, anyway, a bit more movement, in addition to the wind turbine of course, over there. But yeah, a little bit of movement there. It's all been hardwired in and you can't see any of the wires, which is pretty good. And that seems to move quite quietly and slowly. I did put a big power resistor in series with it so that it isn't getting the full 12 volts, because I just thought it looked a little bit better going a bit more slowly like that. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, if you did enjoy it, please leave a like. I know it's been a bit long-winded this one, but oh well, it's a bit of something different. Thank you very much for watching, as I say. If you did like it, please check out the Facebook and Twitter pages if you'd like to. And they're at facebook.com/samstrains or twitter.com/samstrains. It would be great to see you on there, but for now, a big thank you to you all for watching as always, and I will see you very soon. Cheers everybody.